Thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Mike Goodwin, and I'm joined today on our Tech Tip Tuesday by our head of pre-sales, James Woodward.
Hi guys, thanks for joining today. Today we're going to be covering the wild topic of IoT or Internet of Things.
So, what does Internet of Things mean, James? Because I hear this phrase all the time, and I've just got no real idea about what it actually means or what it means to me.
Yeah, so really, when you boil IoT down or Internet of Things down to its raw essence, Internet of Things is just any device that can connect to the internet or even just to your network. So that can be anything from your at-home Alexa smart speakers or Google smart speakers, all the way through to light switches, to temperature sensors. And what we're seeing in the businesses now is it's even expanding into things like medical devices like blood glucose monitors, pacemakers, and other ones. But any devices that is connecting to the internet, but it's not a traditional computer, is technically part of the IoT.
But that's what I was just going to say. In general, like the old school view of this, everything is IoT in that sense. My laptop is part of the IoT. It's not some new magical mythical thing. It's just a newer version or a new take on what has always been the internet. But the fact is now that you've got devices like fridge freezers and ovens that previously never had any idea of what the internet was, but they're now connected. Is that about right?
Exactly, yeah, and I think that one of the big things here is the level of control. I think is probably where you delineate between what is IoT and what isn't. Normal devices, your desktop, your laptop, they have a level of control over them, generally by either yourself or an IT department. Whereas IoT devices, you give them your your Wi-Fi details, your Wi-Fi password. They say I've connected to the internet, and that is generally your interaction with them done from a setup point of view.
Yeah.
Very much so that I think that's where we look at what defines an IoT device are those almost set and forget style of devices.
And I guess that's related to the idea then that they don't really have much updates, do they? That's as we said, the sort of the Windows and even Mac devices that you previously connected, they're always there. We're getting their patches, their security updates. But when was the last time your oven got a firmware update?
Yeah, very much so. So you are trusting that these devices are secure, which to be honest has been proven to be wrong time and time again. That
Yeah.
they aren't particularly secure, but when they come out of the factory with the particular firmware version on, that's what they're going to run forever. I mean, could you imagine taking a Windows machine, like even a modern one, Windows 10, and running it unpatched on the internet? No one would ever dare doing that, but that is what we're doing with our IoT devices.
And so, what does that mean in sort of more business setting? We talked a bit about home devices and Alexas and things like that, but what does this mean, as you mentioned, in maybe in even like medical and healthcare? I mean, my initial thought on this is I've got devices which I'm connecting to my network, which I've got sensitive data on there. I've got things that I need to be always working and functional, and I've added in some cameras or some heating control systems or some door access systems that really are not designed for to be interlinked with a wide sort of enterprise network. Is that the case?
Yeah, 100%. So you will get these devices come on. You'll be asked by the supplier or a facilities department to connect these to your network. And all you get is at most they need to connect to these IP addresses, or they might need to connect on these ports out to the internet. But we have no control over what they're actually doing. We can't lock them down. All we've got is a set of ports they connect to. We can't inspect their traffic because it's SSO encrypted. We can't decrypt that traffic. So we're stuck with these devices which have unfettered access to our network, and they're also with the same level of access out to the internet as well. So it does raise the question from a business point of view: what are these devices doing on your network at any time?
So I guess they really are that sort of traditional pivot point as a potential way into your network. If they're on the same networks as everything else, all of your other users and servers, and they themselves are compromisable or potentially having been compromised, that could be a way in, or maybe more critically, a way out, like tunneling of data, exfiltration, that type of thing.
Yeah, so with these devices where they say they are generally unmonitored on your network, they're put on, they're set and forget. You're not scanning them. You don't have antivirus or anti-malware software on them, scanning them and saying, "Oh, I found something bad." You don't have anything control over what's on the disk, and you can't control what access is happening on them. Then all it requires is one computer on your network to get to get hijacked or get compromised. They then just can discover your IoT devices and move laterally. Some of these IoT devices are still running things like Windows XP, which was when that went to end of life 7 years ago. Yet they're still running Windows XP. So moving laterally is child's play. And then once they're on that device, you have no idea that they're there because you have no monitoring. So they're able to just spread laterally on your network, do some either lateral movement or do some reconnaissance work and start probing your network. But you never, although you might detect that that something's happening, someone's probing my SQL server, where is it coming from? You don't know that it's from that IoT device.
And even if it is from that particular device, ultimately where is it coming from? That device is acting as a proxy there, as a route in. It's not itself problematic. And I guess that probably relates then to sort of like, the botnet ideas and the explosion of botnets in the last few years because of these IoT devices. I'm sure I've read a number of times where some of these IoT devices have been compromised and they're now taking part of a wide-scale botnet. And there's millions of them all across different users' homes and businesses, and that is, by definition, what the distributed denial of service type attacks are.
And I think it's becoming more and more just simple to do as well. With the advent of IoT search engines like Shodan, where you can just go and search for, say, oh, I want to go and find devices that are publicly accessible on the internet that are this type of device. And you can just go and hop on them and just, within a few minutes, you can have access to that device. Most IoT devices are trying to use, UPnP to get out to the internet, allowing ports back in as well. And again, it's things that we might not have visibility or control over.
Yeah, I remember years ago. I think before Shodan was a thing, it was Googleable. You could find a particular model of a particular webcam or like sort of home nanny cam type of thing, and you literally had the ability for anyone on the internet to be able to be watching whatever that camera's pointing at. And I mean that scares the living daylights out of me. So what are the types of things that we could be doing? I guess both at a home consumer, prosumer, but also at an enterprise level to be trying to manage some of these risks.
So I think to start with, I think there's always the attitude of to take, which is be cautious. We're putting these devices on our home networks or on our work networks, and we just assume they're safe where we shouldn't be. We should always be trying to keep things as cautious as possible. Assume they're not safe. Assume that they could get compromised. So you'll start viewing these things in a different way. If you're, it doesn't matter if you're on a work or a home network, can you put them on a separate wireless network? Virtually every, even home router has the ability to create a guest network. Can we put them on that instead? For business purposes, can we put them onto their own separate VLAN where they are only allowed access to the exact things that they need access to, and their lateral movement is heavily restricted? I think that one of the important things that we have to do is start getting visibility into all of these. IoT devices have massively exploded because they are a good thing. They provide a real benefit to businesses. But we need to now rein that back in and say, right, we need a level of control and a level of visibility over what these devices are doing that we don't currently have, or at least a lot of organizations don't currently have.
I think taking that a step further, especially in the enterprise world, is we have software and technology out there now that can almost match what a device is based upon what it's doing, and so we can sort of scan it, we can understand what it is, and we can then classify and allow the certain types of traffic, the certain destinations that we know what it should be doing, and more critically, I guess, then identify if it starts doing something outside of the ordinary. And so if it starts connecting to different IP addresses or hosts internally or on the internet, or starts using a lot of random different ports, then that in itself is maybe an indication of a problem that we need to look further into.
Yeah, I think that's part of the benefit of these devices rolling out of a factory all in the same state. They have very similar behavior. So organizations, companies out there have managed to fingerprint what they do, what they look like. Even based off of just a DHCP request, you can sometimes fingerprint exactly what a device is. And then taking that a step further, adding the classification to say, this is an IoT device, it is a wireless camera, therefore it should be allowed this level of traffic. That level of integration is where we want to get to, because we don't want to make this onerous on overworked IT staff to have to include and add more stuff onto their plate. We want to make it so that they can freely say, oh, IoT devices get the access you want, but we need to make sure they only get the access they want. And that's where, that classification of those devices, that fingerprinting of them is a real key point that needs to be picked up.
And I guess the future of IoT is becoming into like the wearable ideas. You know, we had years ago the first iterations of like the Google Glass, the proliferation of smartwatches now. And as we get more connected, we're going to have more sort of health related data. You mentioned earlier things like pacemakers and glucose monitors. And I can see the day very soon where we're going to have like internet connected insulin pumps that people with diabetes are going to be using. Um, and really the worrisome factor there is, well, what risks can that pose? And ultimately that's no longer an information security risk. That's a death risk.
Yeah.
And so I think this area of IoT security and managing the security of what I would just classify as the extended network, and this sort of term of IoT, in some cases I think glosses over or makes it sound like it's something bigger than what it is. It's very much a continuation of what we've been doing for years in terms of network security, information security, cyber security, and pulling together, understanding what a threat and what the vulnerabilities are, and how best to attack them and how best to defend them, so that we can work out the best balance between security and usability.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing to take away here is that IoT does not mean bad. IoT is the future. You know, the benefits it brings is far outweighs the danger. But exactly the way that we wouldn't let someone plug a random computer into our network, we shouldn't be doing that for IoT. And I think that's the takeaway here is stop assuming that your IoT devices are safe. Start treating them like any other
Untrusted
device.
devices.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for your time there with that, James. I think that's been a really useful discussion on what IoT is and what that means from a security point of view, and how that is impacting both in my private and in my work life.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I would definitely express the interest to say anyone who is interested in what we've spoken about, or just would like some more information, or would like to, just bounce ideas or thoughts off of us, reach out, have a chat with us, see what we can do, see what we can help you with. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been another Tech Tip Tuesday.